Welcome everybody to the 2021 Community Food Co-op Annual Meeting. My name is Holly O'Neill and I will be the moderator for tonight's event. I am so happy we were able to join here together. It's great to see so many familiar faces. And for those of you whom it is the first annual meeting, for all of us, it's our first virtual annual meeting. So thanks for being here. And we have a really fun program tonight. So what we're going to do is first we'll have a video which celebrates our 50 years of existence, followed by our general manager, Adrienne Renz, who will give us a little update on what's going on with the co-op. And then our guest presenter, John Steinman, who's going to be talking about the magic of food co-ops and what he discovered when he did a tour of 140 co-ops across the United States. Then we'll have some time for Q&A. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask, then you can put those in the chat box and we'll answer those as time allows. And following that, we'll have some prizes. We have prizes, which is going to be really fun. So for those of you who are here, we'll be drawing names out of a hat and give away some prizes. And then we'll wind up with a slideshow. So thanks for everybody who submitted photos for the slideshow at the end of the program. And thank you again for being here. And without further ado, let's watch the video.
First one is cheese. The co-op has the best cheese and I love cheese.
The Paul Newman licorice is my favorite.
Shiitakes from Cascadia mushrooms.
My favorite item of all the items in the store are the organic pinto beans.
Their chocolate selection, their coffee selection.
What I always get at the co-op is the cookies.
I really love the citrus aisle.
Chocolate almond brown butter torte.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
good.
They also have an incredible selection of wines that are hand-picked.
Really, I wait all year for blueberries and I eat roughly a pound a day.
Oh, and the cakes. Birthday cakes.
Oh,
yeah.
The
Oh
cakes
my goodness, we do
amazing.
all our cakes here.
I love the 3 salad plate, and Willow loves the oranges.
Sweet potatoes, Brussels sprouts, and wildwood tofu. That sounds super hippie, but there you go.
You know, everybody loves good food. And as the years have gone by, people have become more and more aware of the value of good, healthy food. And there's nobody else in town that sells as much good, healthy food as the co-op.
The food co-op is really, truly a full-service grocery store nowadays, but it's a grocery store with a heart.
There's not a lot of outlets actually selling local produce, and so the co-op is extremely committed to that.
They buy from big farms and from small farms. They encourage new farms that come on, and they try to find a niche for them.
We have such a thriving agricultural system here in the Pacific Northwest, and to be what I feel like is a key part in bringing that food from the fields to the actual people in our community is really important to me.
We're farmers market farmers also, but we can't move the same type of volume without a good, solid, wholesale account like the co-op. So the co-op has been very instrumental in our business.
The co-op fills a need that no other stores really can fill.
We heard from farmers and community members that farmers were having a hard time gearing up or expanding, so we created the Farm Fund to allow farmers to meet the needs of the community or grow their business the way that they want to, which kind of ripples out to our shelves, but also the community at large.
And the co-op really strives to be a place that welcomes everybody and just gives people choices. The co-op really values giving people choices.
I joined a co-op because I know them to be change makers and I wanted to be a part of that change.
The co-op does a lot of programs for making sure that lower income communities have access to fresh fruits and vegetables.
Over the course of the last 10 or 11 years, Bellingham Food Bank has developed a suite of agricultural programs, and the co-op has supported us at every step of that way.
The co-op is important to this community because it gives local and independently owned businesses a stage to be seen. You don't see a lot of those big stores in downtown, and that's what gives it the character. That's what makes Bellingham weird. That's what makes Bellingham fun.
It connects a larger network in the town.
Yeah, so local economy. Like we come here and spend our money on our food, and then that money
It goes out to other
circulates.
places.
Lots of businesses like to tout the importance of community, but the co-op lives it.
Being part of the food co-op really helps me feel like I am part of the community.
When we first walked into the co-op and we moved up here from Seattle, the thing that struck me was that customers would look at me and they would smile. And I haven't ever experienced that at another place that I've shopped.
Our shoppers become our friends, and our vendors and growers shop here, and the coworkers can become like family.
I love it. And yes, walking into this co-op is a familiarity, and I like, I'm home.
The people, the smiles, the smells.
I love the co-op because it feels like home.
I met my wife here. Yeah.
And I just look forward to going there. I look forward to shopping. I love it.
I think it's definitely safe to say I love the co-op, yes.
Okay, I just had to take a moment to share that video. It speaks so well to some of the things I'm going to cover. So, and I'd say it's a pleasure to be here with you all. I really wish I could see all of your faces. I rely on that a lot in annual meetings. That's one of the biggest things I'm missing right now, but fake it till you make it. So even though we're in the web, I'm very appreciative that you've shown up. And I agree with Holly, the comments are lovely just to see people actively here. So though the last year was officially our 50th anniversary, it bears mentioning the milestone and being able to recognize that this while we're all together. We had many plans for last year to celebrate and got a bit distracted with other issues. I have a deep appreciation to all of those that had the initiative and forethought to aid in building the co-op that we're all a part of today. And I see it as a continual process to grow and adapt to where we are and where we want to be tomorrow. As my yearly process, I am always, to be honest, filled with nerves around the annual meeting and the presentation. But one thing I've come to really enjoy is the presentation process. It gives me a chance to reflect on what's happened in the last year, to think about where we're going, which doesn't happen in the day-to-day for me very often. So with the time I have this evening, I wanted to highlight how we've maintained our commitment to the strategic initiatives that were set forward by our membership in 2012. And these stand as brief, very brief spotlights given the time I have, but they serve to underscore the weight that we give these goals in our operations and day-to-day practices, even in times of extreme stress. So first of all, as Jim Ashby, which I think anybody who's a long-term member knows, he's our former general manager, and he used to say, no margin, no mission. So without sales and without financial solvency, we cannot have the impact that so many talked about in the video that we just watched. So no margin, no mission. And I'm happy to report that our teams were able to take quick action to stabilize the co-op. And we were able to close 2020 with a net income of just over 2%. We're still stabilizing, and as more services return, our main focus is on maintaining our financial resiliency through this time. We anticipate a smaller net income this year, but everything is focused on maintaining financial resiliency through these times. Typically year to year, I'll show a slide that's saying, where does a dollar go? You trust by investing in us, you trust by coming to us and spending your dollars, and we feel that one of the accountability measures is telling you where we put the dollars that you give us. So I've given you a breakdown on, cost of goods is our largest, that would be 66 cents on a dollar, is buying the goods on the shelf. The personnel that orders it, stocks it, and helps in purchasing is 24%, and then operating costs and occupancy to keep the building going. And I wanted to highlight that once the pure basics of running a grocery store that we all own, member discounts are the next highest expense, and that's at 1.2%. This is a conservative number and only accounts for the current volume discounts that we offer, and not the special order benefits or member owner sales, which I will discuss further on in this presentation. So now I'm going to frame this around all of the strategic initiatives. Financial resiliency is the first one. In regards to food access, 2020 proved to be an especially hard year for many in our community. The bright spot is that the challenges brought forward a focused collaboration group that prioritized redistributing meals throughout the community. And through this, we were able to divert 72,796 meals for food recovery programs and redistribution. In addition, we were able to continue a partnership with Unity Care to pilot the Veggie Prescription Program directed at changing health outcomes through access to fruit and vegetables in the form of monthly prescription vouchers redeemable at the co-op. And I want to thank everybody and all the individuals and organizations that make this possible. These are numbers and metrics that we could not do without our community partners. So this year, tested employers and employees alike, there is no doubt that it was front and center while we navigated the early days of the pandemic. But I also wanted to say that when we started 2020, we were planning to make headway with an initiative we'd done in 2019. With our equity, diversity, and inclusion team, we had interviewed staff throughout the organization to define the workplace culture we wanted to be a part of and to strive towards. The final results were confirmed at an all-staff meeting, which you can see outlined on the left. So adaptable, collaborative, eager learners, and service mindsets were the cultural pillars at the foundation for defining our hiring, evaluation, and coaching programs. And while 2020 took a turn, we've continued to build on this work and ultimately saw a level of adaptability and collaboration beyond anything we thought was possible amongst our staff. As staff from all departments adapted nearly daily to changes at the onset of the pandemic. None of these employees had or have running a grocery store in a global pandemic in their job description. They all pulled together for each other and our community. And I just could not let this topic of exemplary workplace pass without taking a moment to thank them and express the appreciation for everyone all throughout the organization. As the topic of employee treatment circulates in the news, I know I see it and hear it quite a bit. I wanted to let you all know that we've implemented a $15 an hour starting wage for 2021, and we're able to maintain hazard pay throughout 2020 and into the first quarter of 2021. Okay, and we are a grocery store. We are in the business of food, and we know that the COVID restrictions of the last year have had a large impact on local producers, and with so many businesses closed for extended periods of time, some of the major outlets for selling food have shrunk. The Co-op Farm Fund is a primary outlet for us to support local, sustainable, and organic food, as we discussed in the video. And at the start of 2021, we were able to distribute just over $100,000 to 20 different farming projects. In this coming year that we're in, we'll be rebuilding the fund to continue to work that has, since its creation in 2000, distributed over $500,000 to local farming projects. And I have to say, this wouldn't be possible without the support and efforts of the Farm Fund Committee, made of current and former farmers and food and farming professionals that are volunteering their time towards vetting applications and informing what the best next step is for the funds. The Sustainable Whatcom Fund and the Whatcom Community Foundation, Industrial Credit Union, a co-op, Sustainable Connections, Organically Grown Company, Whatcom Land Trust, Mary Redmond Foundation, and our co-op shoppers who help support the Farm Fund. Thank you. So in 2018, on the right, you'll see the diversity and inclusion goal that was adopted. It was affirmed at community town hall meeting through our internal EDI team and ultimately the board of directors. And though community events were on hold in 2020, we were able to host community engagement on the topic of systemic racism with hundreds of perspectives shared within our stores. On the left, you'll see kind of the statement we put out and then the responses that came up in the comment board that was posted in both stores. Now, beyond food, I know I'm rapid firing, and I wanted to just pause for a second and say, we will be having that Q&A. So let me know if you have questions when we get to the Q&A, and I'm just going to give you all the information I have. Beyond food system development, our strategic plan calls for us to engage in stewardship and advocacy. And the SEED program, also known as Community Shopping Days, was adapted for 2021 slate to focus on food system and food access with a diversity and inclusion considerations. You'll see this list and ongoing fund updates in each store. In addition, we have continued practices and strategic partnerships with everyday actions that I just have a few highlighted here regarding diverting waste and the types of waste and our purchasing standards, endorsement of Transportation Renewal Fund, but also strategic partnerships that expand our voice, capacity, and impact on issues local, national, and global that we've committed to impact small and large. And with community in our name, it is without doubt that we are used to public events. But with public events closed, our primary focus turned to meeting the food access needs of our community with public health in mind. I personally served on the COVID Employer Support Task Force of the Public Health Advisory Board of Whatcom County to aid in outlining safety protocol and communication methods for Whatcom businesses and their employees. And we started Co-op Curbside. This program started on March 31st of 2020, has grown to a full online store, and to date has provided 12,500 personal shopping trips to assist those who, for various reasons, felt safer not entering a grocery store setting. So, in closing, I want to highlight for you how important our member owners are and the impact of the COVID shutdowns. As you can see, we had a severe decline in active members as people consolidate their shopping trips for safety. In 2020, we saw an 11.4% reduction in active member owners, stepping back to the same level we had in 2012. We'll be looking to rebuild this number in the coming years, and towards this end are continuing to focus on customer satisfaction. You know, some new features that have come up with our Co-op Curbside is that you can do account updates and review previous purchases that you've made. You can also sign up for our e-news and receive timely and interest-specific communication. And we're also going to start trying out member-specific sales, such as the annual bulk sale that's coming up. For anybody who's gone to that before, you might remember it as a one-day mad dash in the bulk department, and we've reformatted it to run April 17th through April 25th, and the discount will be loaded. Sorry, you all. The discount is going to be loaded directly onto your account. So when you go to your cashier and you want to use the discount, you will just let them know and it can be applied, one-time purchase. This sale is designed just for you to show our appreciation. We take your support seriously and hope to continue to wow you and adapt to your changing needs and wants. Okay, and now I have the pleasure of introducing you to our guest speaker, John Steinman. John has over 2 decades of food system engagement. He is the author of Grocery Store, which is an extensive look of the impact of food co-ops within their communities on topics like those covered in our strategic initiatives. John has notable work in print, podcast, and television available at deconstructingdinner.com, and all are focused on food system and food economy. After the rush in the grocery stores and food supply shortages of early 2020, we have very recent experience in seeing how important and fragile the food system can be when placed under pressure. Please welcome John to the screen in this unique opportunity to hear from a food system expert that has a heart for food co-ops.
Thank you, Adrian, for the introduction. Wonderful to join you from here north of the border in Canada. And I want to start with a quick story. A couple weeks ago, I was on the road and I was going through a small city just east of here where I live in Nelson. And I was going through the main drag of the city, which has all of the chain stores and chain restaurants. And so there was, within the span of 20 seconds, something I saw that really brought home to me the power of food co-ops and the power of the work that food co-ops have been doing, particularly those from the 1970s and many of the new ones forming today. So I saw 3 chain restaurants, familiar ones to you too. And what I saw underneath those signs really struck me. So the first sign I saw was for KFC. And underneath the KFC sign was a secondary sign marketing plant-based meat. Right after that was A&W, and marketed underneath the A&W sign was grass-fed beef. And then just seconds later, across the street was a McDonald's that was being marketed as locally owned, community-driven. So the language now being used by the dominant food culture, it began somewhere. And I'm certain that our efforts as food co-ops, and I say our, I've been part of a food co-op since 2006, and of course I'm referring to all the amazing people who came before me. Our efforts as food co-ops, particularly the co-ops from the 1970s, I believe are absolutely responsible for the sea change that we're seeing in the dominant food culture right now. So, that famous quote by Margaret Mead, never doubt that a small group of committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, that's all that ever has. We are that quote. I'm convinced of that. So for me, what I've noticed is food co-ops don't need to be about trying to change the entire food system so that every grocery store becomes a food co-op. That would be nice and maybe indeed possible, but the change that the co-ops of the 70s and the new co-ops today are making in the food system is enough. We have pushed the dominant food culture beyond the tipping point. And we did that alongside natural food stores. Whole Foods would be an example of a natural food store, a privately owned one that really also led to significant change in the food system. Diet for a Small Planet from 1971, Alice Waters at Chez Panisse. These were the forces that we were a part of in shaping the changes that we've been seeing. So I wanted to show you some images of what that change looks like. So this here is a Walmart. So organic food is now appearing in the most dominant grocery chains in the country and in the world. We, of course, as food co-ops, helped pioneer organic food in grocery stores. Just one second here, my slides aren't changing on me. There we go. Here is a grocery store right there in Washington State, marketing local. This is a Safeway just east of Seattle. This here, a Walmart in North Carolina, marketing grown close to home, look for local. This is the Safeway from here in Nelson, BC, where I live, marketing look for local. This is what you see when you walk through the front doors of the Safeway, look for local. This is at a chain owned by Kroger in North Carolina with the photo of the farmer, the name of the farm. Again, co-ops pioneered these practices. We've been doing this since the beginning. This is the largest grocer in Canada marketing a new pilot of reusable packaging. Of course, again, co-ops have been pioneering bulk purchases, bulk buying, reusable packaging. So co-ops are playing a major role, not just in the food system, but in all social, environmental change, economic change. We as co-ops have incubated a lot of the organizations that are stimulating that change, whether it's through hosting events, donating, as was described earlier. Co-ops are incubating change all over the planet. And today, more attention is being paid to grocery stores than at any time in history. Of course, part of that has to do with the pandemic, which began with images like this. And thank goodness there is more attention being paid on grocery stores than ever before. These are not just businesses that we walk into to buy food. So I'll share just 4 areas of influence that often get unnoticed within the dominant system, and even with us as, you know, some of the die-hard food co-opers who show up at annual meetings. This is often a good reminder too. As far as I'm concerned, grocery stores have more influence on our health than any other institution within healthcare, any other business on the planet. Grocery stores have the most influence on health. Obesity, diabetes, heart disease, these are all conditions that emerge from food. And grocery stores play a significant role in that. Food production accounts for 25% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Food waste alone, 6% of global greenhouse gas emissions. The diversity of businesses, as was described earlier in the meeting here, of people that grocery stores of all kinds, that those people rely on, it's staggering, the number, the diversity. And a hard reminder last year of just how important grocery stores are to our economy when they were the only businesses open at the early part of the pandemic. And then the last, of course, is the impact on the food system. Grocery stores are gateways. They determine what food makes it to market and what foods don't make it to market. And one of the examples I shared in my book is this diagram here from Greenpeace, where you have 500 million people producing food, now up to 7.8 billion people eating food. And all of that food has to go through often these bottlenecks where there are generally a handful of retailers in any one region dominating access. So really, grocery stores are determining the future of food by what foods make it through that bottleneck and which foods don't. So these are not just any old business selling a product. These are global change-making institutions. And so thank goodness there are food co-ops that are helping shift and push these types of businesses into more conscientious practices. Food co-ops of all sizes. So it's this impact that compelled me to go on maybe the most epic tour that anyone has ever gone. I welcome challengers. Absolutely. I spent 6 months in 2019, thank goodness before the pandemic, traveling 22,000 miles, went through 34 states, 2 Canadian provinces, and visited 125 food co-ops, 23 startups. And I made sure that anybody driving behind me was confronted with the question, who owns your grocery store? This was what my book tour looked like. It was substantial. I, of course, developed a directory of all the food co-ops in the country and have that on my website. And you can view it in certain forms like this form here, which is a heat map, which shows where the co-ops are concentrated right now across the country. You're in a hot zone up there in the Pacific Northwest. And here's the route I took. The black line is the fall tour in the West and the Midwest. And then the red line, particularly there in the Northeast, was my spring tour. So if I was to just share what happened in 4 months, or in 4 slides, I would show you these 4 slides here, which just captures a day in the life, or in this case, a week in the life maybe, of my book tour. I was at a new co-op generally every day. And I want to share some highlights. This is more a state of the food co-op movement. Your co-op is in a category that I've defined as superhero co-ops. And so I want to share some other superhero co-ops from the 1970s. This is Outpost Natural Foods in Milwaukee with 4 locations. Started in 1970. They have 500 employees, 23,000 owners. Sacramento Natural Foods Co-op, 1972. They moved into this store in 2016. It's the second largest single store by sales of any food co-op in the country, doing about $50 million in sales. Beautiful store, one of the busiest stores I was in, and one that really stood out. And the largest, I should add, parking garage of any food co-op. Hendersonville Community Co-op, another 1970s co-op started by 15 families, 2016 moved into that store. Brattleboro Food Co-op in Vermont. 2012 moved into this location with 24 affordable housing units up top on the roof, solar panels generating power for the store. The farthest east I went was in Damariscotta, Maine, at the Rising Tide Co-op. This is the second location of the co-op in Duluth, Whole Foods Co-op. This store opened in 2016. Again, all of these are co-ops from the 1970s. This is inside that store. And the famous Seward Co-op, who opened this second store in 2016. And they did something that co-ops still have a lot of work to do, which is ensure that the workplace is as diverse as the neighborhood that the co-op is operating in. So they got a lot of attention for hiring 60% of their workforce as people of color, which was reflected of the neighborhood that they were in, something that they weren't doing in their previous location. And they also own this building, which is a vintage co-op creamery that has a restaurant and their administrative offices up top. This is how many people ran for the board in 2019. This is an amazing co-op. This is the second or the third location of Mississippi Market in St. Paul. This is the People's Food Co-op, which is the result of a consolidation of two co-ops, one in Minnesota, one in Wisconsin. This store opened in 2012. The Common Market Co-op in Frederick, Maryland. They wanted to open a second store. And what's happening a lot these days in co-ops is they're finding these empty locations with the big grocers often leaving neighborhoods. And this co-op opened up their second store in that space. Green Star in Ithaca just opened this brand new store to replace that one you saw this year. So this is not a store I got to see on my trip, the new one. This here is what I saw when I was in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. The old store on the left, the new store being built on the right. This is the Berkshire Food Co-op. And this one of the newer ones out there, Astoria, Oregon. They just moved into their new store in 2019, in December 2019, one of the more amazing looking stores I've seen. I didn't get a chance to visit this one either. And another community food co-op, Bozeman, Montana. This is another one of those superhero co-ops. They opened a second location downtown right here. And while I was there, they were building this incredible commissary kitchen and warehouse, which you can see here. And bear with me here, I'm going to be moving through these slides fast. Briar Patch Co-op, California, Grass Valley. This is their solar panel parking lot. They're about to move into their second store here in this former Kmart. Oriana Community Co-op in Traverse City, Michigan. They were competing head on with this natural food chain from Colorado. That chain went bankrupt and now it is their second location. They bought the store. Syracuse Market, opening up their second location in this building. Weaver Street Market, one of the older co-ops in the Philadelphia area. Tiny store, but they now have 3 locations. They own a farm with a farm market and a CSA. And this is their third location, which opened up in a food desert north of the city. Moscow, Idaho, satellite store on the campus of the University of Idaho, grab and go food. And then there's my store here, the Kootenai Co-op. We bought this building in 2012 and began developing it into a 4-story mixed-use development. And this is what our store looks like today. Here's a peek inside. And there's some Depression-era co-ops still around too, a handful of them. This one from 1936 in New Hampshire with 4 locations. Putney Food Co-op from 1941, Vermont. Beautiful store inside. Swarthmore Co-op from 1939. They integrate conventional food with natural and organic food, and they put all the conventional food on the bottom shelves to make sure that the natural options, the organic options, are the most visible. The River Valley Co-op, they just announced that they're building their second store. It's under construction. Here's what it looks like today. So co-ops are growing, co-ops are expanding, co-ops are adapting. The Littleton Food Co-op in New Hampshire expanded after just a few years opening their first location. This is in a town of 6,000 people. And the Viroqua Food Co-op, one of my favorites, 4,200 members in a town of 4,400. Old Creamery in Cummington, Massachusetts. And these last slides here, this is the future of food co-ops. These are the startups, the people coming together to create new co-ops. I visited 24 of them. This is where they're located across the country. about 85 of them right now in my directory. This is one of them that was under construction when I was there, and they just this year opened their doors. So co-ops are opening their doors pretty much every few weeks right now, new co-ops. This is Cedar Falls, Iowa. They just acquired this land and they're starting work on this store here. They're the Rooted Carrot Co-op Market. Fredericksburg, Virginia, days away from moving into their new store, brand new, 1,800 owners. And the last co-op I want to show you here, this is one of the inspiring stories of, I think, what's next. This is the Gem City Market opening in one of the largest food deserts in Ohio, Dayton, Ohio. 3,000 owners. There's going to be a health clinic, a teaching kitchen, and there are 19,000 people living in this food desert who are now going to have access to a full service grocery store. This is days away from opening. And grocery stores are closing down in cities all over the country. And what happens when they do is the food co-op becomes an idea for what's possible. In Butte, Montana, 165 people showed up to this meeting when their two main grocery stores downtown closed in the span of a few weeks. So this is happening across the country: Detroit, Maynard, Massachusetts, Oshkosh, Wisconsin, Lombard, Illinois. Of the 134 co-ops that opened in the past 10 years, 74% of them are still open. So food co-ops are sending ripple effects through the food system. We're continuing to grow. We're continuing to adapt. And the work that you do as a co-op shopper is critical in supporting the change that we want to see. So I just want to close by encouraging you and your co-op and people from all over who are at their own co-ops, and this is what I encouraged while I was on my tour, to not imagine that we're trying to convert every grocery store into a co-op, but to keep doing what we're doing it well, and knowing that we are affecting significant change around the planet. So thank you very much for hosting me. Wonderful to be a part of your co-op's annual meeting. And I have visited your co-op, and I look forward to visiting it again. Thank you.
Aw, John, that was so great. Okay, here's how we clap on Zoom. We all go, wow, yay, you can wiggle your fingers or, you know, do this kind of stuff. That was fabulous. How
Thank
fun.
you. Thank you, Holly.
Yeah, I wish we had, I mean, we're trying to keep it, you know, pithy, but I would have loved to hear so much more. So when, you know, again, one of the prizes for tonight, you can get John's book, or I'll just keep it. No, I won't. Okay, so now we're going to move into a little Q&A time. And I'm going to put this information also in the chat. Okay, so if you have, we're going to put Adrienne up on the screen in a moment. So your questions can go to either John or to Adrienne or to both. You can just type away, you know, you don't have to take turns. And I have my my colleague, Amy, the marketing and outreach manager, Amy Esri, who's going to help me with this. So as you type your questions, she's going to help kind of compile and look for themes, and then I'll read those out loud, and we'll just see how this goes. But again, if you have stuff that's related to COVID, we'll point you to that website for the health department, and then just in general, we just really want to utilize this time to hear from John and Adrienne. And if you do have stuff about the finance, you know, we usually do our finance report. So in which case, I put it in the chat box. You can just email our finance manager for that, John at home. Okay, so here we go. And I'm going to pop off. Adrienne, you're going to pop in. And I'm going to just be like a voice, I think, conceptually. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and type questions, but I'll just start with one. John, this is for you. What are some of the regional differences that you're seeing in the United States relative to, you know, kind of co-op development and what co-ops are doing? Are you noticing any patterns, either across, you know, between Canada and the US or across the country? Oh, you have to unmute. There you go.
There, oh, now
Got it.
I had to be allowed to unmute myself. Yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah, it's a question I've been asked a few times, and to be honest, what I saw across the country were more similarities among co-ops than differences, and that's something I didn't quite expect. And you know, you could imagine, as best you can, being in a new food co-op every day or two, and being for me, a Canadian who hadn't done much traveling across the United States, I would show up in these communities that I've never been to. And yet every time I walked into the food co-op, there was this amazing familiarity. Sometimes it was because a lot of the co-ops smell the same, whether it's the wellness department mixing in with the fresh produce. So there was something about that you know, made me really feel at home as I traveled across the country. So that was actually more dominant than any differences. If there was any significant difference or noticeable difference, the co-ops in the Northeast, I really found were much more well connected with each other, probably because of the short distance between co-ops. Like I would sometimes drive a half an hour from one town to the next, and there's a co-op in each town. And so there's a lot more networking and connection that happens there. And so I noticed a bit more camaraderie, whereas when I was in the West, a lot of the co-ops, for example, in California, are quite distant from each other and quite isolated from each other and not connected as much as the Northeast co-ops were. So that was actually an important difference I saw. Thanks.
Wow, interesting. Well, here's another. I'm noticing a couple questions or comments about waste and recycling. And I know in the time of COVID, that's really limited our ability to reuse containers, which has been a challenge, I know, for many of us. But I think hearing both from Adrian, just what do you anticipate in the future? And John, what have you seen in terms of innovative strategies around waste and recycling? Adrian, do you, either one could go first. Adrian?
Yeah. Well, I can jump in. I know some of the rolling reusable containers, we know that people are ready and want it. And so we're monitoring kind of health department recommendations in bringing reusable food item containers back into our stores. I'm excited because we've been able to participate pre-COVID in supporting using reusable containers in the deli and being able to take your stuff from the deli case into your containers and being able to think about some of those items. The only thing I can commit to at this moment is that we have every intention in returning, and that we have a sustainability coordinator who holds our feet to the fire, points out when we have opportunities, and he reaches out to other co-ops or other industry individuals to find out best practices, as well as share what we're learning. So I think there'll be more updates as we get ourselves reacclimated to the life as it is now, and steer away from our emergency response that we've been in for the last year. But we have every intention, and we had some great goals that we'd set forward for 2020 and just had to set them to the side in regards to that. And I'd love to hear more ideas once we're able to open up events and learn more about that again. One more quick statement is, last annual meeting, we were going to focus all about plastics, and Jean and I were kind of, I mean, that's such a bummer. It was going to be a great session to hear about industry experts, and that might be something to bring back forward for a future meeting, is to be able to dig back into that topic we'd wanted to.
Yeah, I'll just offer two quick examples. I mean, one thing that's certainly the case with food co-ops and their, I think, ambitions to reduce waste is it's all dependent on the people in the store, you know, the customers and the members and their own commitment to it. And that's one of the things I noticed is, you know, we are not isolated from the dominant tendencies to try to eat quickly and prepare food from fewer raw ingredients than maybe we did in the past. And this often creates a lot of waste. And so there were some co-ops I walked into, one in particular in Toronto, like an old 1970s co-op, really small one. And what I noticed when I was in there was the fierceness of commitment among the people, the members walking through the store to bring their reusable containers. It's not, I stood in co-ops for hours on end, watching people come into stores, watching people walk out of stores. And this one co-op really stood out. Every single person, almost every single person was bringing in their reusable containers. And so to me, the number one way to be shifting is to start with, of course, the shoppers, the customers, the passion to do that. The only one example of a innovative idea that one co-op was applying around this was the Middlebury Natural Foods Co-op in Vermont. They, like many co-ops, have been expanding their salad bar and hot bar. This is something that has been important up until the pandemic because of how many people are interested in that grab and go food. And they started working with a material, I can't remember the material, but it was a returnable container that people could bring back and get washed at the store. You put a deposit down, and that container was actually being used by a lot of their members.
Wow, excellent. Gosh, there are so many good questions flowing in here. I'm gonna, just to keep us more at that system level, because we've got both of you here, I'd like to go to the question of where are you seeing, for both of you, the opportunity for co-ops to really affect the health and sustainability of our communities? Where do you think the biggest impact we might be able to make in that area? John, maybe you could go first.
Well, I'll just speak to one that has been a focus of mine. You know, I really think there's a whole new opening of possibility that co-ops are entering into, particularly as the dominant grocery stores have, you know, followed in the lead of our co-ops. That, you know, we're in this position now of trying to figure out, well, what's the next big change that we can help stimulate? And what I did when I got back from my tour was brought back to my co-op, even though I don't hold any formal role other than being a really active member owner. I presented to our board and spoke of what I thought was the real strong need to secure our supply chains. And so, of course, this was actually a couple months before the pandemic when we started to really see the need for that. And so I think this is the next phase among many that co-ops, I'd like to see co-ops enter more into. Certainly the co-ops like yours in the US have been part of National Co-op Grocers, which is a way to secure the supply chain by operating like a virtual chain. We don't have that here in Canada, but a lot of the small regional distributors are disappearing. And I think co-ops need to do whatever we can right now to preserve the ones that are left and start to come up with innovative strategies for how to sustain them. And the Organically Grown Company is one of the most inspiring models on the continent, one that I'm now looking to as potentially an inspiring example to bring here to Canada.
Thank you. Adrienne?
Okay, I was like, I'm wading through all the information about food systems and trying to be like, okay, what's my pick? What do I pick if I can only pick one? Yeah. And I have to say, I'm pretty fixated right now on the food deserts and food access. And one of the reasons being, access to healthy food has long-term impact and implications for our community. And the more people we can give access to, the wider distribution that we can have locally. So I'm holding on to that one right now. When I see the food deserts and the opportunities to build co-ops, one of the things I really adore about food co-ops is how much they do help each other. So as I mentioned in the comments when John was running through the list of co-ops, Mike, I have fond feelings about each of those pictures and the people connected to those co-ops, because we do reach out to each other and say, hey, I don't know how are you doing this, or what's this working for you? How's that work? How'd you get there? And really rely on each other. So even when I think about a food desert, and we've had people reach out about, you know, start a food co-op in Blaine, I'm like, well, the beauty of a food co-op is you can start a food co-op and also build that impact. And it doesn't have to just be bring your corporation into our town. So I feel that that's a strong economic driver and builds healthy food access and health outcomes. overall.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. So here's another that I think both of you can perhaps respond to, but I'll start with John. So John, you talked about the importance of diversity and connecting with the communities, you know, where the co-ops are located, and how to build connectivity with more diverse communities. Can you say more to how you see that happening, where you've seen it perhaps be effective in your travels? And Adrian, perhaps you could chime in with sort of your vision of how we can do more of that, really making our co-ops accessible and welcoming to all.
Yeah, you know, it's a layer that co-ops operate at that in the speed that I was moving across the country, I, to be honest, didn't get a chance to often get to that layer. I was going in and out of co-ops quite quickly, and but of course I've been having many conversations about food co-ops for quite some time now. You know, I think one of the things that really stuck out, because this is a conversation, I should add, you know, because not everybody gets a chance to understand what the bigger conversations are happening in the sector. But this theme of diversity and inclusion has been one of the #1 themes at recent gatherings of co-ops like CCMA, which is the annual gathering of co-ops where 450 people show up from co-ops across the country. So this is actually a conversation that's happening that's, I think, in its infancy from what I can observe. And something as simple as making sure the foods on the shelves of the store are make the customer or the people in the neighborhood feel like comfortable walking into the store. And it's something that we might not see in our co-ops, that the very nature of what we know, what we know to do well. Because like I say, every co-op kind of looks the same as I go across the country. The constellation of foods and how they're presented is actually a deterrent for a lot of people walking into those stores, because it's not familiar. And so the actual store does not feel welcoming. And so feeling welcome is something co-ops try so hard to do. It's often the sign in front of the stores. And there's been a blind spot within co-ops for quite some time that the foods that we're so committed to selling are in fact a barrier to people coming in and feeling comfortable in the stores.
I 1000% concur with that. We've had, I wrote down at the onset of your question of the community and for the community. So I've seen the co-ops that have had traction in that have had that philosophy, right? So if you're in a town and you're hearing from your community that you don't have what they want, and one option would be to start carrying the products that they want.
Yeah.
And then it definitely is an ongoing conversation amongst co-ops. And again, they're utilizing each other. One thing that stands out is I'm familiar with the demographics of Whatcom County, and I can go to other stores and say, I don't recognize anybody here. So what's the difference in reaching out to communities that we aren't familiar with and learning what is it that would make it so that we're part of your community. But at the same time, I want to point out that diversity is not just race. There's diversity of thought and diversity of perspective. And so I know we may also have a demographic that have launched around what we call our core shoppers. You know, we're dyed in the wool, tried and true, organic, local, and belief around that. And then sometimes when I poke outside of my bubble, I think, oh, my friend's family, they call me the OG mom. And that's because all the kids left. They come to our house and it's organic and it's so outside of their bubble of comfort. So how do we start having that conversation with what would be somebody who's never been introduced to it and drinks out of plastic bottles for all of their water because they're there and they're weirded out just coming into my house. So how do we expand that conversation and invite them to come in without feeling that they're outside of it? And that's a hard one to crack too. There's a lot of assumptions made. So of the community for the community though.
Yeah. Oh, it's that balance, isn't it? Well, I just want to hear, we'll do our little yay. That was such a great panel, and you both spoke so eloquently, and thank you. And we're just coming down to the end of our program. So again, if you have more, we will have, if you look at what Melissa put in the chat box, so we'll keep a copy of the chat and then respond to those online, or again, you know, feel free to, you know, to email the co-op anytime with your questions. And I am now going to present to you our board co-chair. Ryan, are you ready?
Yeah, ready.
Going to introduce the board. Go ahead.
Thanks, Holly. Thank you everyone for being here. My name is Ryan Peters. I am the co-chair. Normally we would have Ceci Lopez up here with me, but she is on a leave of absence right now, and perhaps next year. So two things I wanted to go over today real quick as we wrap up. One is a pitch to you all, to our member owners, to consider running for the board. And as you know, the board's role is to set the financial, social, and environmental goals for the co-op, and to provide critical oversight and assistance to management in achieving those goals. So over the years, the complexity of running the co-op has increased significantly. And we're seeking individuals with a passion for the co-op who bring the expertise, the skills, the character, and diversity to successfully lead the co-op, especially during these challenging social and economic times. And core to this are the experience and judgment to understand the co-op's current and future business needs. So if this sounds like you or something you can do or somebody you know, please have them reach out to the board, any one of us, any one of the board members who you're about to meet, or Jean Rogers, our board administrator, and that info can be found on our website. So I know we just went through an election cycle. Nevertheless, please reach out, get in contact with us, and we'll put you on a list. Sometimes we have openings that need appointments. So with that said, I'd like to recognize our board members as we have here tonight. So I'm going to read you some names here, and these they're going to pop up in the window. So we have Margaret Gerard, Terrence Morris, Randy Rydell, TQ Wynn, and Laura Weiss. Yeah, so we're also having two more new board members joining us who we just all voted for. And that's RJ Holleran and James Erb. I'm not sure they're going to be pulled up here today, but you will see them soon.
Okay, so Ryan, thank you. And yay to all of our board members and to all of our future board members. That's all of you who are going to run, because we're a co-op, because it's a democracy, a democratic organization. And now I get to do the fun thing at the end. How many of these am I picking again, friends? Remind me.
We've got 5 books to give away and then a cash prize.
Oh my gosh, and how much is the cash prize for?
$100.
Okay, cash prize, like a gift certificate, right? At the co-op, I'm guessing? Yes. Okay, here comes the first one. So 5, count them, 5 books. And the first one, hold on. Ooh, here we go. Roger Lee Sussman, are you there? Yes, you got a book. Roger, you are a winner. Okay, how many? So that was 1. Here's number, and Lisa Heisey, you just got a book. And here we go. Oh, here we go. I have to write, gosh, how did these get written? Okay, I'm looking. And it is Ryan Chase. Ryan, a book for you. And Ruth Nail. Nail, did I get your last name? Ruth, okay. Here we go. Just pulling these out. Where am I at? Was that 5 or 6? Ooh, here we go. And Sage Siegel. And this is so fun. I like the little basket. It's got a great sound. And last but not least, Krista Rome.
No way, Krista, you did it.
Yes. Was that all the books that I had? Was that 6, guys, or should I do one more? Okay, I think that was 6. Somebody has to help me here. All right, and now for the grand prize for the $100 gift through. What, did I do it right? Someone gonna help me here?
It was 6 books.
It was 6
5
books.
books.
5 books,
5
and
books.
6 was Krista. You said
Oh, the
Krista
6.
was
Oh,
6.
Krista, you are the winner of the gift certificate. You are the winner. Oh, that's great. You deserve it. You are a hard worker. You've done a lot. In fact, I want to just say how many really amazing people are on this call right now on this Zoom who have contributed so much to our community. And so here we are in our little home, but let's just have that co-op feeling of gratitude that we get to be part of creating amazing things in this world with our friends in this place. And I feel very grateful for all of you. And so thank you to John, thank you to Adrian, thank you to our amazing staff, thank you to our gracious board, and especially thank you to all of the members of our food co-op for making something amazing happen. And we're going to stay on, so the evening is technically over, but if you would like to stay longer and chat, I think we're going to do just chat box and run the video again. And thank you all. It's been fun. Okay.